Hello, and welcome to my second part of the Pixar Problem series, in which I am discussing some flaws that I feel Pixar has that people don't often talk about. If this is your first time watching, I would highly recommend that you go back and watch the first part first, and you can find a link to the playlist down in the description below. I wouldn't necessarily say it's required viewing, but I do think this video will make a lot more sense if you do. And remember, I'm not trying to hate on this company. I highly enjoy most of their movies and have a lot of respect for them. This is simply me offering up some constructive criticism that you are free to disagree with. Also, there may be spoilers for any number of Pixar movies ahead, so if you haven't seen any and you don't want anything ruined, please proceed with caution. Alright, let's get back into it. Now, as the title may suggest, I'm going to be getting more into the writing in this part. And before I get started, I just want to clarify that I honestly believe that the story is the most important part of any film. As far as I'm concerned, a movie can have great visuals, great acting, great direction, great characters, great dialogue, great cinematography, great music, great anything. But if it doesn't have a great story, then to me it all falls apart. A movie is only as good as its story. That's my personal motto. I've even seen quite a few movies that were bad in other respects, but were actually saved by a great story. So it's not the fact that Pixar values the story that I want to address. It's how they tell the story and how it affects the overall movie that I want to discuss here. As I've already said, Pixar cares very much for its movies' themes and what its overall message wants to be. And that's perfectly okay. Even the most basic or kiddish movies usually want to say something. But the problem comes in when the message becomes more important or starts to dictate how the story should go. Now, this actually happens way more often than you think, as writers will often place the message above everything else. But in Pixar's case, it actually isn't quite that simple. Just to put it into perspective, this video's title is the actual mantra behind most animators these days, especially at Disney and Pixar. And again, that in and of itself is not the problem. The problem is that they care so much about the story that it and the message they're trying to send that everything else is a lesser priority to them. Now, I don't claim to be an expert on anything, but as a guy who's tried his hand at writing, I can safely say that if you want your story to be done right, you have to be focused on other components as much as the story itself. Now, I know you're probably wondering what I mean by all of this. Well, let's go back to something I briefly touched on in part 1. Pixar loves to have two characters fall out with each other and say, mean things to each other in order for them to feel guilty about it and make amends, and maybe even learn a lesson or two in the process. With only one or two exceptions, you can find that in pretty much every single one of their movies. But the problem is, that happens whether or not it works in the context of the story, because they place more emphasis on the lesson the characters learn than how much sense it makes within the movie. For example, in Brave, the argument between Merida and Eleanor makes perfect sense. The whole movie up to that point is just one big volcano of anger and tension just waiting to finally blow up. So it makes perfect sense that they would have this huge falling out. However, by contrast, in Toy Story 4, I feel that the fallout between Woody and Bo Peep is completely forced and doesn't make much sense within the narrative. I mean, yeah, it does make sense that they wouldn't want to confront Gabby again, but what doesn't make sense is why they all gang up on Woody. They all agreed to the plan of their own free will. He didn't make them do it. And to top it all off, it wasn't even Woody's plan. It was Bo Peep's. So if anything, you think everybody would be gaining up on her, but the characters and even the narrative itself instead make it look like Woody is the one at fault. And then he even says, it's called loyalty, something a lost toy wouldn't understand, just to drive this point home that he's somehow in the wrong, even though it makes no sense that he would say that, especially since it hadn't been foreshadowed in any way that he felt like that. But at the same time, if this fight doesn't happen, the entire movie derails. And after all, what they're trying to say is more important than how they say it. And that is the problem. Listen, as I said earlier, I do believe that the story is very important, but at the same time, the story has to make sense. If you want to have characters make a bad choice or fall out with somebody else, then it has to work in the context of what you've already presented. Basically, it has to be the logical outcome when any given characters are faced with a given situation. However, Pixar tends to have their themes and messages, as well as the story itself, so tightly fitted into place before production even begins that there's no wiggle room. If something doesn't make complete sense within the story yet has to happen in order for it to flow right, then that's how they'll do it and not worry how much it makes sense from a narrative standpoint. And that's not the way to write something. The whole point of a movie is cause and effect. Now, like I said, sometimes they do this perfectly, in which case this isn't an issue at all. But even then, it still feels like most of the time the story is so important that it must be completely mapped out down to every minuscule detail. And I speak from experience when I say that's not the healthiest approach when writing a story. Now, here's just one other thing I'd like to note. During production of The Jungle Book, most of the animators were worried about the rather simple story they had mapped out, and it was Walt Disney himself who told them not to worry about it. According to a reliable source, his exact words on the subject were, "You guys worry about the story too much, just give me some good stuff." And according to that same source, the stuff Disney was referring to was humor, fun, and entertainment. In other words, he didn't need or want a complex story with deep messages in order to make a great movie. He focused on the fun first, and from there he was usually able to tell a good story that captured the hearts of millions. Okay, that pretty much wraps up this part. Thank you all for watching, and I hope you've been enjoying this series. But if you'd rather check out, then that's perfectly alright. But now it's your turn to tell me, just how much emphasis do you think should be placed on a story in terms of themes, messages, and complexity? Please feel free to discuss in the comments below. And until then, I hope to see you all next time.